So, Kareem, today we're going to flip the script. Tell us about yourself. Where do you come from, not just physically, but philosophically, and what influenced you to take the path that you did and make the decisions that you did?
Welcome to the Pioneers Possibility Podcast. I'm your host, Kareem Afzal. And always on the podcast, we ask you that you please subscribe if you love our content. It helps get us to get our word out. Leave a comment, tell us how you like the show and what kind of guests that you would like to see. As well, you could find our podcast on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Substack, and anywhere you get your podcasts. This week, we are coming to you with myself, Kareem, and our producer and editor, Danny Vagnoni.
How's it going, everyone? Great to be here. Great to come out from behind the camera.
That's great. And I'm really thrilled to have Danny join me on camera today to share a little bit about how the podcast came to be, what we intend to share with our guests, the listeners, and also to share a bit about Danny, who's behind the scenes making the great content and splicing things into shorts that you can consume it as we go along. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Danny.
So, Kareem, today we're going to flip the script. Tell us about yourself. Where do you come from, not just physically, but philosophically, and what influenced you to take the path that you did and make the decisions that you did?
Sure. So I am a product of two immigrants. So my father came from India on the first wave of scholarships in 1965 after the Immigration Reform Act, where they opened up student visas to students from the non-Anglo-Western world. He was in the first wave of students. He came to the United States to get his master's degree at Princeton University. He met my mother, who saw an ad in a newspaper in Sweden, where she was from, to be an au pair in a Swedish family. Didn't know any English, came to the United States at Princeton. They met through a mutual acquaintance at a local YMCA, and neither went back. Their fortunes were decided by kind of divine intervention and fate, as it would be. And fast forward some years, and my sister was born, I was born, and my brother were born. And they never left and created a life for themselves, started a small business out of his garage, grew it slowly over time. And from childhood, I worked in the family business. And after graduating college as a mechanical engineer, I started working the family business as a low-level engineer and slowly worked my way up through time. Fast forward to just a couple of months ago, I did basically every job in the place, PDC Machines, except the CFO position. We recapitalized the business with an equity partner in order to support the scale of our main market, which was the hydrogen energy economy, a part of the energy transition that will help decarbonize the planet and move from traditional fossil fuels to different forms of energy, where I supported the growth of the business into markets on 6 continents. And I had traveled around the world. I had met interesting people as I went along through my professional and also my personal life, where I served as a nonprofit board member on multiple local and national nonprofits, from the social sector, soup kitchens, victims' rights and support organizations, Chamber of Commerce's, and those types of things. And recently, somebody had suggested that I start a podcast. That you've traveled the world, you've met all these interesting people. Why don't you start a podcast? And I thought about who's going to want to hear my musings, but they would like to hear the people that I've interacted and worked with, and hear their really fascinating stories. And as I was approaching my 50th birthday, I was coming to a life where I decided I wanted to make a pivot. I decided that I'd been in this organization, PDC, for 29 years. And if I didn't make this pivot, I have another 20, 25 years of kind of, you could say, highly productive work years left in me. And sort of the next stage of my life, I wanted to explore new and exciting opportunities, and I'm going to make this pivot. But with the podcast, why don't I interview people who have made their own pivots in their life? They've started out, they started out as one thing, life and circumstance came at them, they pivot and went on to do creative and meaningful things to change themselves first, and then the organizations or the world or whatever it is in their field of support work or volunteering. And so that's what I did. I started the podcast, and I've had folks from around a variety of sectors, from soup kitchen executive directors to the CEO of one of the largest health insurance companies for the underinsured who grew up in segregated Alabama, to our latest guest, which was the first Latin American born astronaut, first and only, in the NASA space program, who co-owns the world record for seven times going up and down into space. And so I've really been excited to share these stories. And the best feedback that I have gotten, which is the feedback that I've always meant for the podcast to do, is that these stories have inspired me to do better, to do something different, to use my talents to do better in the world. And that has been the most meaningful to me. And I hope our listeners and viewers.
Amazing. Yeah, it has been an incredible slew of guests that we've had on, and it has been a real pleasure to edit their interviews together. I think just being exposed to all that kind of insight week after week is really, it's a drive in itself, which is cool.
You know, I think the thing that binds all of our guests together is they're just good people, right? So they want to re-engage humanity at a human level in order to uplift whatever work they're doing, right? So Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz is now working on a rocket engine that can introduce higher speed solar system space travel, right? I mean, like Star Trek level stuff, but it's kind of engaging the human spirit of exploration to look beyond our world and see what's out there in a way that otherwise would not have been possible. And, you know, what Susan, our first guest, is doing at Manor on Main Street and providing meals to those who are in need and hungry without asking. You know, they provide hot meals every day. People come in. Sometimes they want companionship. Most of them are food insecure in some ways, so they're just there to have a meal. But sometimes they just want to talk to people and have a conversation. So it, you know, on every level, our guests are looking to engage people on that human level. And I think more than anything today, we need that human connection.
Yeah, agreed. That's a question I think about a lot. And I think, yeah, our guests really engage on both the economic level and the sort of emotional level, both of which are really important issues to address right now. I think everyone feels sort of this is, in one way or another, feels this is sort of an age of precarity. So having those perspectives and having them be optimistic is really important.
You know, at sometimes when you look at sort of the broad picture, it's a little depressing. But when you look at what you could do to those closest to you physically, you know, in your local communities, you can make a big difference.
Yeah. We don't have to get too much into this. This is a whole nother thing, and for that reason, I think that some of the local guests have been really interesting. So we are in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, which is a major city in the landscape of the U.S., but in a global sense, actually feels like a pretty small city. But I think it does. Seeing those people close to the ground really gives you an interesting perspective on what you can actually accomplish. Engaging with touching grass, as Gen Z would say.
Yes,
engaging.
We need to touch more grass with our bare feet.
We do, yeah.
And sort of get that grass in between the toes in order to increase our connectivity to each other. I think that there's nothing more important than that. Actually, Danny, last night I went to Have you been to Bustleton Avenue, like Feasterville?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it is like a melting pot of Philadelphia, right? So there are all these. There's a Uyghur Chinese food place across from a Georgian Russian restaurant, down the street from a Turkish cafe where you could get Turkish coffee and kunafe, down the street from a restaurant called Samarkand. It's a Uzbeki restaurant down from the Jewish deli further into Philadelphia. I mean, Philadelphia truly is a melting pot of the world. And just going to dinner last night reminded me of the richness of this area, that it is truly a place, even from the country's foundings, that people came to seek a better life and something different for themselves. Which gets me to you, Danny. So
yes.
So this is the Meet the People of the podcast episode, and tell us about yourself, Danny.
Yeah. So hi everyone. My name is Danny. I am a writer and producer based out of Philadelphia. I have a bachelor's degree in English and a master's in media studies and production. Kareem and I actually met through my work at PDC Machines. I was hired as an executive assistant actually in February of 2020, and you can imagine how that quickly became not obsolete but different. And so I was going to school at the time for my digital media degree, and so I ended up doing a lot of digital media. I am currently writing for the History Channel's show History This Week, which is a podcast about history that happened this week, sometime in the past, which is really cool. I am the kind of person that misses writing APA citations and would probably be in a doctorate if the state of academia were a little bit more manageable. We could have an entire conversation about the state of the industry, but I don't think we have time for that. And working on this podcast has been awesome. It's something that I take pleasure in bringing to everybody every week, even from behind the camera. There's a lot to be gleaned from these interviews. And like I said, the local interviews really mean a lot. Kareem has been involved with Manna on Main Street for quite some time, which is like 15 minutes from where I grew up. So seeing all that is really cool, seeing the perspectives behind that, but then the global perspectives as well. So, I mean, you can't really get more global than 7 times astronaut. That is sort of like the literal definition of being global. Getting to produce that has been extremely cool. It provides this interesting contrast actually with the work with history. I've got the perspective on the past through the lens of newsy historical stories, and then you've got the perspective on the present and the minds that are currently pushing forward. So it's been awesome. I love doing it, and I hope you've all been enjoying it.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. And, Danny and I have had discussions as we've gone through the podcast on editorial things, right? So there have been, we've had a wide array of guests, and, our guests have very strong views on particular matters. And in the end, we come down to one thing. This is our guest experience. We're not here to edit broad chunks. We get out of the ums and the gaps in time and some of the word salad that may come out of somebody's mouth, but it is their stories. We're sharing them with you. Their stories will be wide-ranging in terms of viewpoints and perspectives of their lived experience and where they are at today. And our goal here at the podcast, our promise is never to edit those. We're going to share those with you unedited, and for you to discern and digest how you feel of that. And we encourage you to interact with us on our in the comments section on the YouTube channel. And also we have an Instagram account. We need more followers. So please, Pioneers Podcast Host on Instagram. We'd love for you to engage us there. With that, so I want to thank everybody for joining and listening. We look forward to bringing you many more guests of a wide diversity. We're in the middle of our arts series. So coming Monday, I'll be interviewing a mezzo opera singer at the New York Metropolitan Opera House at the Lincoln Center, and somebody running Philadelphia's only South Asian art gallery in 12 Gates Arts. So we look forward to sharing these and many more with you. So with that, I'm your host, Kareem Afzal. Please hit subscribe and follow, and thank you very much. This episode of The Pioneers of Possibility has been produced and edited by Danny Vagnoni, with music credits going to the artist known as Sahari, and artwork for our podcast is presented by the artist known as Layla. I'm your host, Kareem Afzal. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode and you would like to hear more from future episodes, please follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and click the subscribe button on YouTube. And please leave a comment so we can engage our listeners. Thank you very much. See you next time.